This is the Ray Lucia Show,
Coming to the best for the answers here.
the one show that helps you make better money moves. The program all about your money, your business, and your life.
You guys talk about a lot of really good information that even I can understand.
Call Ray now at 844-RAY-SHOW, 844-RAY-SHOW. This is the Ray Lucia Show.
Thank you very much. Thank you and welcome to the one talk show in America that helps make better money moves. The Ray Lucia program, live on your radio and television nationwide and coast to coast. Phone lines always open for beeswax. If you want to get on board, the call is free. The advice, priceless. 844-RAY-SHOW. How creative. 844-729-7469. It could have been the John Show.
Yeah, I know. I was lobbying for that, and I have been since like 1993 or 4, or, whenever I decided that,
844 John Show. Try that one. Maybe you shouldn't try that one.
You probably shouldn't. First of all, I think it's too many numbers, and second of all, I don't know what that's going to get to you.
Going to get you to the John.
Do you remember? Well, you remember a phone number we first set up 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was one of the first 877 numbers, if you
Right,
recall.
right.
But the 800 version of that was some,
Hi.
sexy line. Yeah, exactly.
My name's
That's what
Sandy.
That's what you got when you called. So we had to emphasize, folks, this is a new toll-free 877.
Now there's
not
877, 844.
There's
all
844,
kinds,
866, a whole bunch of them.
Give us a buzz, 844-RAY-SHOW, or email us. We got some dandies in today. RayLucia.com, RayLucia.com. I want you to start the email with Yvette, who actually called me because I had responded to her email, and I said, you know what? This is too much. Sometimes when you get a long email, it's a lot easier for me to just talk. Yeah, of course. Yeah. And a lot of people just don't want to go on the air and talk. So I said, well, just call me on my cell. So she calls me as I'm driving down the road this morning, sucking on my coffee, and I was too dangerous because of the traffic.
You're not allowed to do that. Yeah.
What, suck coffee?
Well, talk and try to drink coffee and drive at the same time.
Yeah, and I didn't have my earpods with me either.
No, you left them here.
I left them here.
Those.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't steal them.
I thought about it, but
I know.
Yeah,
but then you'd have to go to confession and all that stuff. That's just not
right.
good.
Well, we'll do this. You want to do it later in the hour?
We'll do it later in the hour. I do have a few things to start with. Sit back, folks. Relax. It is the Ray Revolution. There we go. Yeah. I read this a while back. It's so good because when we talk about retirement planning, you gotta assume that there's going to be some risks, and the risks, they are a-changin'. And how are you going to manage them? So I'm going to go back in time a year or so ago. I've talked about this and see if anything has changed. What are some of the risks? Reduced earnings capacity, so says Dr. Fowl. Risk capacity, he says, is the ability to endure a decline in portfolio value without experiencing a substantial decline in your standard of living. Makes sense. Prior to retirement, poor market returns may be counteracted with a small increase in the savings rate, or possibly by a brief retirement delay or even a slight increase in risk-taking. Once retired, however, people can find it hard to return to the labor force and are more likely to live on fixed budgets. So he calls this first risk reduced earnings capacity. It's so true because so many people, when they're in the accumulation phase, they can be more aggressive. But there's a point at which you're in the decumulation phase and you just simply can't be.
Well, you can't be because you need to live off of something. And this is one of the reasons we like to time segment certain portions of the portfolio. He talked about, maybe he'll talk more about this, I don't know what the rest of the article says, but he talks about, I think essentially what he's leading up to is have enough money set aside so that your standard of living can't go down.
Which is true on the next one because he says visible spending constraint. At one time, investments were a place for saving and accumulation, but retirees must try to create an income stream from their existing assets, an important constraint on their investment decisions. Taking distributions amplifies investment risks, market volatility, interest rate volatility, credit risk, etc., by increasing the importance of the ordering of investment returns in retirement.
Ordering of investment returns. What are we talking about here, Ray?
Well, you're talking about the sequence risk, which we've discussed many, many times. Obviously, if you retire at a time in your life where the markets are doing fairly poorly, it could have a distinct problem. It would create a distinct problem, maybe, in fact, running out of money long before your life expectancy. And really, just a couple of years can make a difference. If you hit it wrong, if you were just born, if you didn't talk to your mom whilst in the womb and say, "Can you just keep me in here for another 6 months, a year, 2 years?" There are cases, and we've seen them, where if you're retired a year later, 2 years later, you end up with $1 gazillion, but that bad return early in retirement can kill you.
Well, and it only takes one or two bad. They don't even have to be horrible returns. They can just be somewhat mildly bad returns, and it can mess up your whole portfolio if you decide you want to take a systematic withdrawal out of your savings, which we don't recommend.
And he goes on, heightened investment risk. I don't think we need to talk about that. And anybody that's been in the stock market for a while realizes that since, World War II anyway, the average bear market produces about a 34% decline. And, if you lose 30 some odd percent, it takes a lot more than 30% just to get back to even, probably closer to 60% to get back to even.
Yeah, it's something greater than 30. We know that if you lose 25%, I can do this off the top of my head.
Yeah.
You need 33% to just get back to even. People forget about that.
Yeah. If you lose 40, you probably need 60.
Something like that. Yeah.
Unknown longevity. Now, this is a conversation that we have almost daily on this program because, as you know, I've been studying this for years. In fact, over this past weekend, I did a lot more research for a talk that I'm giving next week in New Orleans.
Yeah, you're going to be back in the. We haven't been to New Orleans in quite a while.
It's been a few years, that's for sure, since Hurricane Katrina got rid of our station.
Well, it sort of drowned the microphones
yes,
out.
Yes, it did.
It was right after we were down there, I think, a year or so, and we talked to David Orrick. Remember him?
Oh, yeah, great. I was just talking about him the other day.
No.
I was talking about the conversation we had with him, and every business owner that manufactures a product should talk with David Orrick. Because remember the question I asked him about why he wasn't selling in Costco?
And he had said, because I want to control the distribution, I think was his answer.
Exactly right. He said, all I would have to do is sign the deal with him, with due respect to Costco. He said, and Walmart.
Any of them.
And he said the next thing they would do is they would start squeezing me on price.
That's what they
and
do.
I'm going to be looking at my profitability, and I'm going to have to go get product from China or some other place, and the quality would go down, and eventually I'd be out of business.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
We did the show from his. It
was a bank. It was his bank or something. He had a vault down below. Or
yes, but all the vacuums were down there or something. He had like a showroom or a
showroom in the bank.
There. Yeah, that was
it was great.
He and the late Charles Travis too.
Oh yeah, Charles Travis was a super guy. Anyway, unknown longevity is very important. Spending shocks. I don't think I have to explain this to y'all because we all have them. I had a spending shock this last year with my automobile with 130,000 miles on it. My Escalade they told me that I needed a new tranny. I think it was BS, but
what are you going to do? Argue
what do
with
I
him?
know? I wouldn't even know where to find the tranny. I couldn't find a tranny in my fanny.
They could have said you need your Covington rods are completely shot. You need $500 worth of that.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, obviously emergency funds, you need to have those. Compound inflation. I have less of a problem with the compounding of inflation because, as you well know, we've researched this whole spending thing. There's no question that retirees experience inflation, and in some areas they experience inflation that's significantly more than the rest of the stuff they spend money on, like healthcare and so forth. But overall spending does decline, and that whole retirement smile thing we've talked about 100 times on the air is true. And I knew that anecdotally, and it was kind of fun when all the research has come in over the last less than a decade now.
Verifying it.
So compound inflation. But this one we discussed last week, John, and it's a real biggie: declining cognitive abilities. Remember we discussed the fact that once we hit age 60, oh God,
I'm not there yet.
no, but I am.
I know you are. It's in your rear view mirror.
It is. Once you hit age 60, whilst your decision-making ability you think is still good and rational, your cognitive ability is declining by about 2% each year. And I'm not going to tell you how many percentage points mine has declined.
It's double digits, but
It
below
is
double digits. All right?
By the way, Gene Pastula is going to be joining us a little bit later at the bottom of the hour. We'll ask
yeah.
him what's going on. And if you want to email us, we got emails coming up too. RayLucia.com. Click on the Ask Ray button. We're back in a flash with Johnny Dean and Ray Lucia on the Ray Lucia program. Hey, welcome back, folks. This is the Ray Lucia Show, bringing you the best in money information. Sidekick Johnny Dean in the house. So you didn't watch the Grammys. You don't know who Cardi B is or anything like that.
No, I don't care. I mean, a guy like me, I shouldn't care. I'm
What-
not
what
that
is it-
old.
what-
but
what is a guy like you?
I'm not that old. A guy like me who still, who stopped paying attention to music about 1983. That's a guy like me.
Well, I did too, but my wife made me. I was sitting here getting ready for this big. I've got two huge things I got to do for New Orleans. I'm speaking twice,
And that'll be next week.
and it's next week. And I've got to put the whole presentation together because it's
Yeah.
a little different kind of a presentation.
There's a lot of insurance people, I think.
There are a bunch of insurance people, and they want a little motivational thing. I got to
you've got that.
got to pull some stuff out of the fanny pack.
You've got that.
So
one.
I was working all that stuff, and she says, "You have to come watch the Grammys." Excuse me. She said, "Honey, would you like to come watch the Grammys?" And I said, "No."
No.
But she got mad at me because we never sit down and do anything together. So I sat through the whole dang thing.
Why? Keep
Because
the peace.
when Jeannie says,
Oh,
sit
boy.
down, I
I
sit down.
your trouble. See, I established long ago that I don't do any of this pop culture stuff. That's it.
So I wanted to find out about Cardi B, whoever the heck
It's a
that is.
sweater.
And I found out that she does something with music. She won some kind of an award. She spends $300,000 a month. That means
On
if she's
what? On
following the
clothes?
4% rule, I don't know, on whatever she wants, private jets. So if she follows the 4% rule, she's got $90 million in her retirement portfolio.
How old is this person?
Young.
Oh,
I
they
don't
gotta
know.
be. They're all
Probably
young.
in their
They're all
20s
young. I realize
or early 30s.
I sound horrible when I say I don't know who
She
these
did
people are.
I think she did the Pepsi Super Bowl commercial.
I didn't watch the commercials either. I'm
Yeah,
there for the game.
I don't remember that one.
Yeah.
But here's what's interesting about Cardi B. Business Insider pegs her net worth at around $8 million, and she's spending
$300,000 a month?
$300K a month. Yeah, she'll be bankrupt someday. Anyway, Cardi
All right,
B
well,
and
whatever.
all the others. Now Smokey was there.
Smokey Robinson.
Yeah,
Okay, there
Diana
you go.
Ross was there.
I've heard of Diana.
So that was pretty cool to see them.
Well, it is pretty
Dolly
cool.
Parton.
As they get up with their walkers
No,
and their canes and all
Diana
that
Ross
stuff.
was celebrating her 75th birthday.
Yeah,
she
golden
still looks
anniversary.
great. She can still carry a tune.
Yeah, good for her.
Dolly, not so much.
Well,
she
but-
couldn't hit the low notes on Jolene.
Well, you and I can't hit any of the high notes, and we're not as old as she is, or as
I
famous,
know.
or as
I
talented.
know. Hey, coming up in just a bit, I've been doing a lot of research. As John said, I'm going to be speaking in front of a bunch of insurance guys and ladies that sell Index Universal Life. I'll talk with Gene Pastul about this because a lot of people don't realize the potential benefits. And I say potential because it's not for everybody.
No.
But it is for a lot of people. You might recall last week I discussed this right here, as a matter of fact, since I'm sitting on a whole bunch of my research, optimizing retirement income by combining actuarial science and investments. I'll be speaking on this topic, and this is where the retirement researcher went in and looked at a permanent life insurance policy. In his case, he used whole life, but you can replace whole life with Index Universal. It's still a permanent policy. And an annuity contract in lieu of putting money into a 401k.
Oh, my.
Yeah. So right off the bat, Johnny Dean says, well, that's a stupid
Oh, my.
idea.
Well, I didn't say it was a stupid. I think it can be a stupid idea. I'm not saying it's a stupid idea for everybody, but I think it is for some.
So I did this spreadsheet, even color-coded. How do you like that?
Yeah, it's
Were you
kinds of
impressed
fancy
with me
colors.
that I was able to do that?
I'm blown away.
Yeah. They did an example for a 35-year-old and a 50-year-old. I'll give you the 50-year-old numbers because you would think the older you are, the worse it gets. And what they said was this: if you actually had $625,000, of course they made up these numbers.
Of course.
In your 401k plan, and you're committed to spending $32,000 a year, and you're also committed to owning term insurance and investing the rest, which many people
talked
do.
about that last week.
So buy term and invest the difference, so to speak. Of course, you have to pay taxes first on the money that you're putting into the term insurance policy. Anyway, they net the whole thing down to, if a person was buying term and investing the rest, just using investments only, no annuities, none of that other stuff, and they were going to follow a 3.5% withdrawal rate, similar to the 4% rule, but based on where we are
Out of
today
their
with
401k?
interest rates. Out of their combined, yes,
right.
but it's mostly
Everything.
qualified money.
Right.
They would have $30,251 to invest each year in their 401k plan. Now, this is all done by the retirement researcher who doesn't miss anything. If I were doing it, I would miss 800 things. He doesn't miss anything. Every tax, every single number. And what he said here is the median distributions in the 401k would be worth $1,860,000. So a 50-year-old retiring at 65, saving $32,000 a year with $625,000 to start with, buying a term life insurance policy, I think it was for around $400,000 or $500,000, $1,860,000. Now, if in fact they bought a indexed life insurance policy or a whole life, they used whole life in this example, then they would only have $14,000 to invest in the 401k.
That's not even half.
Because their premium for this super expensive life insurance policy would be $13,500 and their taxes would be $4,500. So they'd only have $14,000 left of the $32,000. So you would think that they're not going to have nearly as much money. Well, here's the median distributions. Instead of $1,860,000, $1,568,000.
So it's less.
So at age 65, they have 16% less money. Now, the life insurance cash value is $311,000, so they're about even. Now, this is using a target date fund and funding the retirement plan based on your age, and it gets more conservative as time goes on and so forth. The death benefit of $937,000. Now, here is the kicker, and we'll ask Mr. Pastula about this in a minute. The median distribution of income at age 65 from an annuity that is purchased, and I think they put like $700,000 of their millions of dollars into an annuity to get $72,584, but the lifetime income annuity is worth $22,000. So the dude or dudette that at age 50 bought a life insurance policy and at retirement bought a SPIA, single premium immediate annuity, puts $94,675 in their pocket every single month, versus the investments only, no annuity, no life insurance, $65,106. Now, at age 100, the investments only are worth $265,000 because there's a permanent life insurance policy in there. $1,460,000 to the heirs. You see, you can in fact have your cake and eat it too. We'll ask Mr. Pastula about that when we come back on the Ray Lucia Show. Bulldog is in the house. Gene Pastula. Hey, Bulldog. Welcome back to the program. Hello, Gene. How's it going?
It's going very well.
So I'm sure you heard me talking about how a permanent life insurance policy and an annuity can help fund an individual's retirement plan. And as I mentioned, not to get caught up in the numbers, folks, but the bottom line is this. What your trade-offs are, according to this research done by Dr. Wade Pfau. This is brilliant stuff, by the way. If you got knocked off at age 66, you'd have about 16% less money. That's husband and or wife. So how many couples both are gone by age 66? Basically none, actuarially speaking. If you made it until age 100, an individual or a family that just focused on funding their 401k in a target date fund on an inflation-adjusted basis, forget the numbers for just a minute, would end up in this example with only $265,000 left for their heirs versus $1,460,000, 451% more. But Gene, they put the same amount of money into their accounts. The difference is, in one instance, they funded a permanent life insurance policy, which would take care of the spouse in the event that the breadwinner died early, and a life annuity, which means if they made it to age 100, they still get lifetime income. Why is it that so many people beat guys like you up over the products that you make available?
Actually, and you know what? I think it's feels more complicated to everybody involved, including the press and people who are investment advisors. That basically what they know about insurance products is just a little bit more than what their clients do, and they're not in the business of doing that. So there's a lot of negative information out there. Some of it worthwhile. I mean, there are annuities that are very, very expensive, and depending on why you're buying them and what you're buying them for, they can be perhaps not as appropriate and what have you. But when you know what you're doing with these insurance contracts, and you know what your objective is, then then you start to see not instead of investing in real estate and stocks and bonds, but in addition to. And I've talked a lot about I'm like semi-retired out in the desert, out by Palm Springs, and I live in a community with a lot of retirees, and they're all fairly well off, but when you talk to them about their investments or what it's amazing how many of them do not know anything about what their investment. Oh, I have a financial planner and he handles it all. Well, how's it going? I don't know. It seems like it's okay. I'm not got any complaints or whatever. And the ones who do always will actually talk about it more, and they'll always mention they have an annuity or two in their portfolio.
Interesting.
The ones who pay attention to their finances.
Gene Pastula,
Yeah.
who pays attention to his and perhaps yours. You might be interested in getting a hold of him, not only because he's a good guy, but because he's one of the smartest guys and invented the so-called linked benefits plan that now is being used by literally thousands and thousands of individuals. Most banks all around the country are utilizing this linked benefits plan. One of the things that upsets the apple cart in retirement, and I think the Index Universal Life takes a baby step toward addressing this, is filling the need of long-term care, but there are other ways to do it as well.
Yeah, when I first started in the insurance business, which was a long time ago, the sale of insurance to older people was basically kind of limited to people who had very large estates and were facing estate taxes when they pass away. And so having an insurance contract, like you mentioned last last segment, that insurance policy grew to a huge amount of money by the time they were in their late 80s, and so they would use it for that. But interestingly enough, we now live in a society where retirees, at least half of them statistically, will end up spending a significant amount of money. I mean, into the tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars before they pass away on convalescent care, long-term care. And the policies and the insurance contracts that had been available up until about 20 years ago were of the same kind as your homeowners or your auto or whatever. You pay a premium and to pay benefits if you ever need it, and if you need it, they pay benefits. But if you don't, the insurance company obviously keeps the money, and nobody liked to even think about the fact that they could potentially use long-term care. So we came out with a different approach that said, why don't we use a life insurance policy, because that leverages, magnifies the amount of money significantly that you put into it, and is designed to pay at death to your beneficiary. That's the value of this product. But why don't we change it just a little bit and say, but if you need long-term care, you can tap the death benefit and receive benefits for, depending on the policy, 2, 4, 6 years. And if you don't need long-term care, if you are right and you're so healthy you're going to die at 95 asleep in your bed, the benefits will be paid to your heirs. So the money that you put into one of these contracts, especially in your later years, 55, 60 and above, once the benefits are paid out, if you look at the rate of return, it's extremely impressive. In fact, the sooner you die, the better the return. But
sure.
But the point is that even if you live into your late 80s, early 90s, the rate of return is better than having the money in the bank, and it's tax-free. In the meantime, that same amount of money can be paid to you to pay for long-term care. I'll give you an example. A lot of the business that we put is we just take a bank account and some of the money in the bank and move it into the insurance contract. Let's say we're talking about $100,000 because it's easy to do the math, but it's all proportional. So $100,000 is moved from a bank account that's getting what are they getting now? 1.5%?
Yeah, probably 1.5%.
1.5%, taxable. So you move that $100,000 into the insurance contract. Now the insurance company is going to pay credit that money with around 3 to 4%. Now, that doesn't mean that money is going to go up every month or every year by 3 or 4%. But what it means is there's a lot more interest in that money that can be used to pay for benefits. So $100,000 on average might turn into, again, for simplicity purposes, $200,000 at death. All right? It's a life insurance policy, no big deal. But if you need long-term care, the $200,000 now can be delivered to you to pay benefits of, in that example, like $8,000 a month, which is what it costs at a minimum most places in the country.
That's what I'm paying, $8,000 a month for my
your
dad. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. So. And if you don't use the entire $200,000, if you pass away after 6 months or 8 months or a year, whatever, then the remainder that isn't paid for will go to your heirs. So when you put that $100,000 in there, the money is safe. Oh, by the way, in most of the cases, you can get all of the money back either immediately or within a couple years. That's the commitment. Otherwise, you might pay 5 or 7% as a cost of withdrawal. But we have very little of that because most people that have large sums of money that they can move like that know that they have plenty of other money for emergencies.
But
and
what
what
I
have
think
you.
your point is that if a person puts $100,000 in, almost $100,000, if not the entire $100,000, is available to them if they do have an emergency or if they win the lottery.
And you can choose, say, okay, I don't need all 100. Just give me 80 back if I ever need it, and now we'll give you more benefits. And we're talking about now doubling or tripling that $200,000 because we have riders that take care of that. People should call me at 800-238-8144, 800-238-8144. Ask for Gino.
Gino the Bandino. 800-238-8144. You can email me at raylucia.com. Click on the Ask Ray button. I'll get you over to Gene Lickety Split. Gino, thank you so much, buddy.
You're welcome.
We're back in a flash with emails. Don't go away. Welcome back to the Ray Lucia Show. Mr. Tangerine Man, huh? That's a good one.
Have you heard Dylan's version of the? He wrote it, of
he
course.
wrote it.
He wrote it. Very different.
Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man.
Very different. And I had to
Yes.
weigh the two because
Oh.
the first version I ever heard was the Byrds version. I'm sorry, Bob.
Really, I grew up on the Bob Dylan version. I loved it.
Well, the first one I ever heard, because I didn't come along till '64, and so this was like '68 or something with the Byrds version. But anyway, that's the first version I heard, and so. But I heard them and I said they're both great. They're just different.
Totally
I like
different.
them equally. As it
Totally
turns
different.
out.
Well, they introduced the 12 string into the
Which I think
Byrds
works
version, which is
wonderfully.
really, really cool.
Yeah.
But Dylan is he's a phenom, man. Just a great songwriter. And that song, I was a kid, of course, when it came
Well,
out.
sure,
And it was
yeah.
really, really fun to listen to Dylan songs.
Well, and it was different too.
You
That
know
was the
who
main
loves Bob Dylan beyond
Yes.
imagination?
Yes, I do.
Who?
Ben Stein.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I'll never forget we were doing a seminar together in Minneapolis, and he talks about, because that's where he's from.
Yeah.
And not Ben. But
No, that's where Bob.
Dylan.
That's where Mr.
And
Zimmerman, when he was known as
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
exactly. Not very many people know that, but
It's
you
true.
do. And Ben did. And he was talking about all of his songs. And he was going back in the archives
Yeah.
of Dylan songs. Ben's got a brain that I don't know how he fits that much
Yeah.
stuff in it. But it was fantastic. The crowd went wild. I can't wait to go back to Minneapolis with Ben Stein.
His favorite song is "Shelter from the Storm."
Shelter from the Storm.
I
you
remember
got
him
it.
saying
Yeah.
that. So. Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
What is here nor there is the,
the
emails
emails.
that we've gotten in. So hit it, fellas.
Yes, hold on, I've got it here. This was, we promised, and I don't want to forget. Yeah, that's not
There
bad.
we go.
There
You
you
like
go.
that?
That's- wow, look at this. We
Yeah.
got the whole medley going.
Yeah, that's what I've been using since I left you.
Well, now,
Since we had our divorce.
that sounds so bad. This was an
No,
unforced.
it's unforced error.
That's right.
But it's back. I've got, by the way, thank you to everybody that's emailed me. I've gotten a bunch of them.
Yeah, we'll try to get to everybody's if we can.
Yeah, but this was the band getting back together type emails. And
Right.
thank you guys. It's great to be back in the old studio.
It sure is, where it all began, or at least this era of it began.
I look around and I see all of my dollar bills here.
Everything is still here, just the way you left it.
Yeah.
Okay, an annuity question, at least that's what it says in the subject line from Yvette. It says, I'm 57 years old. I have a $50,000 annuity. The 4-year contract with the corporation expires in September of 2019. I want to transfer the 50 grand with the $4,000 of interest to my savings account. Will I have to pay any penalties and or taxes on this money? Well, the first thing that stuck out to me, Ray, was that she's 57 and she wants to do it this year.
Yeah, and that's a problem, Yvette. I'm going to talk with her after the show because she had emailed me that email and I didn't have time to answer it and go through all of the detail. But there are a couple of things. She probably bought something called a MIGA, a multi-year guaranteed annuity contract for 4 years, a couple of years ago when she could get a better interest rate in a MIGA than she could in a CD or a bank account or just about anything else over a 4-year time period. So she bought the MIGA at 53 or something like that. She's now 57. The rules are the rules. And if you were to liquidate from a MIGA or any annuity contract before 59 and a half, you will have to pay not only ordinary income taxes, but also penalties. She's in New York. I'm sure the state of New York has
they want their piece.
penalty tax as well. So it'll be a taxing experience depending on what your tax bracket is. Now, you could do an exchange into another MIGA, a 1035 exchange as it's called, for like 3 years until you are 59 and a half, and then you can liquidate and only have to pay the ordinary income tax. But there's no way around or getting around the ordinary income tax. There is a way around the penalty, but you can't use the money for another 3 years. So if you don't like the rate that you're quoted right now, you can do an exchange from one contract into another, a 1035 exchange, and delay paying all of the taxes and the penalties until you're 59 and a half, at which time you'll have to pay just ordinary income taxes. But if you cash that sucker in, you're going to be paying ordinary income and a penalty tax of 10% plus state of New York, which is probably another couple of 3%.
Just
who
the
knows?
penalty alone adds 10% to the tax bill.
Yeah, that's right. So $4,000. They don't pay the you don't pay the 10% penalty on the principal, just the earnings.
The earnings, yeah.
So that's $400 extra that you're going to be paying in taxes that you don't get a deduction for. Probably doesn't make sense, and it does hit into that your rate of return. I mean, your rate of return just went down by that 10%.
I guess it would go back to why she needs the money now. I mean, maybe there's something that she's willing to pay the $400 or whatever it is just to get her hands on the rest of it.
Yes, that is absolutely true. So Yvette, I will talk to you. She's going to call me after the show, and I will coach her through that. I do that a lot, by the way. If you guys email me, go to raylucia.com, click on the Ask Ray button, and if it's a little bit complicated, most of the time I say, hey, text me. I'll tell you when's a good time to call, and we just have a conversation, because answering the more technical questions takes some time, and there's usually a follow-up.
Well, that's the thing. See, we don't maybe always have all the information, but when we read some of these emails, we'll look at it and we'll say it would depend on X or Y. So you need to ask, have a conversation and say, well, let me ask you a couple of questions. Then you can get probably a little bit more accurate answer.
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons why if a person has some kind of a permanent, a whole life, or a universal life insurance policy, that's probably a better place to be able to get money from for the next 3 years, and then you can always take the money out of the IRA at 59.5. So we'll see what she has to say when I chat with her.
It's just the thought of paying a penalty to me. $400 or $4,000, I mean, who knows? It's just the thought of this being a penalty tax. It's a tax is what it is.
Yeah,
and it does nobody any good. It doesn't do you any good. It's like setting fire to a pile of money.
It's giving the money to the Trump administration, which a lot of people in New York don't want to do.
It's destroying the money. I mean, it does no good. To me, it goes against everything that I believe.
Okay, just relax. Drink your whatever you're drinking there. I don't know. It's yellow.
You
I don't
knew
know
years
what it
ago
is.
my stance on taxes.
I know your stance on taxes. I helped you save a bunch of them for many, many years, as you recall.
I do recall that.
Yes.
I do recall that. Let's see. We don't have time. I don't. We got like 45 seconds.
That's it?
Yeah, but Tomas has a question. Let's try to read that.
I have
time.
answered Tomas's question too. We have a nice relationship.
Oh, okay.
And I told him that I promised him that I would do it on the air.
Okay.
Just to be able to say, Tomas, I did your question on the air.
All right. Well,
I got a bunch of them in. We'll get to Tomas's next hour then.
Yeah.
Huh?
All right. Good.
He's
I
a
like
good
that.
guy. Really nice guy.
Yes. And if you want to email the show, go to
raylucia.com, RAYLUCIA.com. Click on the Ask Ray button, and I'll get right to you. In the meantime, go out and make it a great day, y'all. God bless. Talk to you next time.
You're listening to The Ray Lucia Show, bringing you the best in money information, answering questions about your biggest financial challenges, talking about your money, your business, and your life. Ray Lucia is not a registered representative of or affiliated with any securities brokerage or investment advisory firm. The views and opinions expressed by Ray and his guests are not necessarily those of this station or its sponsors and should not be construed as legal, tax, or investment advice. You should always consult with the appropriate advisors before making any financial decisions. Ray is available to take your questions online at raylucia.com.
Forget about it.
This is The Ray Lucia Show,
Coming to the best for the answers here.
the one show that helps you make better money moves. The program all about your money, your business, and your life.
You guys provide a lot of really good information that even I can understand.
Call Ray now at 844-RAY-SHOW, 844-RAY-SHOW. This is The Ray Lucia Show.
Wow, I tell you, it's great. It's great when we perform in front of a live audience like we're doing today. Thank you very much. I do thank you. Welcome to The Ray Lucia Show, the one talk show in America that helps you make better money moves. The program all about your dough and your business and your life. All kinds of business except all that monkey business I heard during the Grammys. Oh, Lord. I'm still trying to figure out who Cardi B really is. I was telling Johnny last hour, Johnny Dean. Oh, by the way, welcome, John.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
We're talking about how she spends $300K per month.
Reportedly.
Reportedly.
Which, I mean, I'll believe it until somebody tells me otherwise. Now, you and I said, who is Cardi B? I don't know.
Well, yeah, but it reminds me of several others who spent themselves into oblivion. Shall I go through some of them?
Well, sure. You see it a lot with athletes, for sure.
Nicolas Cage, remember that dude?
I do.
He was worth $150 million and blew through almost 85% of that money by buying a whole bunch of houses and his own private island, $150,000 pet octopus. What do you do with a pet octopus?
Well, if you need some extra arms around the house, you know.
And a 70-million-year-old dinosaur skull. That's another one that I'd love to have in my man cave.
There's somebody somewhere high-fiving somebody else saying, I sold the skull.
Exactly.
I can't believe it. I found a buyer.
How about Can't Touch This? MC Hammer, remember him?
Yeah, boy, there's a name from the 90s.
Yeah.
Wow.
His estimated net worth was $33 million in the early 90s. By the middle of the decade, he was $13 million in the hole. How are you worth $33 million, MC Hammer? Can't touch this, and be basically bankrupt and.
It's easy.
Remember they did the Cribs show?
No.
And they showed his crib, his $30 million mansion, had more than 200 people working for him at a run rate of almost $1 million a month. He got $33 million. That gives you 33 months before you're totally bankrupt.
About 2.5 years.
I guess he thought he could keep it going. He had one really big song, I think.
I don't know. I don't even know why I know.
And he had those pants. Those pants. Do you still have your MC Hammer pants?
What do they look like?
Those big baggy things.
Oh, the baggy things?
Yeah.
That became a thing, didn't it?
It did become a thing, yeah.
No. I don't have those anymore. I still got the bell bottoms from 1974, but not.
I understand that Kanye West also was worth $53 million, and he was very close to being bankrupt. But then the Kardashians and I think Donald Trump bailed him out a little bit. Or maybe he bailed out Donald Trump. Yeah. Rihanna. Remember her?
I remember the song Rhiannon.
No. Different. This is an artist. Rhiannon, yeah, that was Stevie Nicks.
Yes, it was.
Yeah,
I've heard the
Mac.
name. Couldn't tell you who it is.
By the way, what's his name? Lindsey Buckingham.
Had heart surgery of some kind, and I think it damaged his vocal cords.
I know that would be a shame.
He's gonna be out for a while.
He's a phenomenal guitar player. I saw him here in San Diego a few years back. Wow.
Yeah, I saw him playing just the acoustic guitar and the finger work.
He's unbelievable. He's unbelievable. But she had $11 million in 2009 before buying a $7.5 million mansion in Beverly Hills. The home had all sorts of problems, including mold and water damage, and she was forced to unload it at a $2 million loss. By the way, she was basically broke, but now she's worth gajillions of dollars. So she made it back somehow. In either event, that's what I was thinking about last night as I was watching the Grammys.
Well, you think about it because you help people without the millions of dollars, the $30 million places or whatever. They don't want to run out of money either.
Yeah, we want to make sure that even all of y'all, rich people, don't run out of money. So stay tuned to the rest of the show.
This is the Ray Lucia Show.
Coming to the best for the answers here.
the one show that helps you make better money moves. The program all about your money, your business, and your life.
You guys talk about a lot of really good information that even I can understand.
Call Ray now at 844-RAY-SHOW, 844-RAY-SHOW. This is the Ray Lucia Show.
Hey, thank you very much, and welcome to the one talk show in America that helps you make better money moves. The program all about your money, your business, and your life. Johnny Dean in the house, and I've got a lot of emails from business owners, speaking of business, and we may get a chance this hour to talk a little bit about some of the strategies for business owners, but I am loaded with stuff to talk about. How about this one? Many Americans think proof of Bigfoot is more likely than a comfortable retirement. This is an actual article by Tracy Longo in Financial Advisor.
Okay, well, the odds of there being positive proof of Bigfoot are zero. So to me, they're saying that there's no chance for them to have a comfortable retirement.
And we've talked about location in real estate, but what about your retirement funds? Where should they be located?
Big question, and that's something that a lot of people leave out of the equation. I don't know why.
And of course, you know, we've got the whole Valentine's thing still on our minds. Have you done anything?
No, we made a pact a long time ago, my wife and I, not to do anything for Valentine's. We're too busy. It's just not a good time of year.
Yeah,
so
well,
forget it.
I finally popped for a couple of gifts the other day while I was in Las Vegas.
Well, the average person is spending something like $220 or something.
Yeah, that's about what I dropped, I think.
Yeah. It's not pretty.
But I keep telling my wife, don't get me anything, because I'm not getting you anything, and then I slip it in and then she gets mad at me, and we have a rotten balance.
She should. Don't do that. You've got to stick to the agreement.
Is it time to reassess your risk after the volatility we experienced and a little bit of the recovery? But I want to start today with this, because you and I have opinions on 401k loans, why you shouldn't take a 401k loan.
According to the article.
According to the article by Robert C. Lawton, who seems to be a pretty bright dude. So sit back, folks, relax. I'll let you know if Johnny Dean and I or Robert Lawton is right here on the Ray Lucia Show. So I think we know about 401k loans and the fact that they can be a dangerous thing to get involved in. It's one of the reasons why I have said many, many times to build up other monies that you can get your hands on. However, I have also said that a 401k loan can be a pretty decent place for people to gain access to funds at fairly quickly and at a relatively low cost. So, I'm a little bit perplexed when I hear everybody say, and one of the, probably most popular financial planners in the country says, never ever do 401k loans. And it's not Susie, it's a guy.
That was the same voice you used.
I know.
For your friend
I can't
Susie.
do his voice. I've been on many of the, CNBC with the guy. He's a decent guy.
He said never do 401k.
Never ever do a 401k
I disagree
loan.
with the word never and always.
I think that's true.
That.
But here's what Mr. Lawton had to say, and he's a contributor for Forbes, and you're not.
Well, that's true. I will give him that.
Studies have shown 86% of individuals who have an outstanding loan when they leave their employer for a new job will default on that loan. The defaulted balance becomes subject to state and federal taxes and possibly penalties as well at the state and federal level. So what say you on that, Mr. Dean?
Well, first of all, if you think you're going to leave your job or it's in peril or you have plans to leave, I'd say anytime in the next 5 years, don't take a 401k loan, because that loan, maybe they didn't know it, is due and payable when you leave. That's just the way it is. It's a salary. You pay it back through your salary. You pay it back monthly over an installment plan over 5 years, or you can just pay it off completely. But if you're not getting a paycheck anymore, very few 401k administrators are going to allow you to keep paying it back.
Yeah, very few. And I think the point is, and of course not everybody knows when they're going to leave their jobs.
No, they don't, but you got to be fairly certain that you're going to keep it or have cash on the side.
I think it's really a last resort kind of a loan, unless there's just a wonderful opportunity. Now, I will say that in my many years in the beeswax here, I have taken several 401k loans. Sometimes it was to make a real investment, and I paid it back over time. And sometimes it was to do remodeling, which shouldn't be construed as a real investment when it's in the Lucia house.
I'm not sure I would recommend that people do that. I would rather see it, maybe you're paying off a high interest rate credit card. You had a big expense, medical expense, and they're going to charge you a lot of interest. That kind of thing.
Or maybe you're married to a woman that says we got to redo the master bath and the master bedroom. It's going to cost $150,000, and the next thing you know, it costs even more than what you had anticipated.
Well, you can end that right away with the word no, but some people, they don't use that word.
Or your daughter gets married and she calls you on the phone and says, "I forgot to tell you that we never budgeted for the $20,000 tent."
Who does this happen to besides
Me.
certain people
Happens
that I'll
to me.
leave the name off of?
In either event, the 401k loans have come in handy in situations
Of course
like
they have. That takes out the never borrow from the 401k right out the window. All right, what else do they say?
Well, the stuff that's good, interest on the 401k loan, you now must know is not income tax deductible. And it's probably not going to be income tax deductible any way you slice it. I suspect if it's for the purchase of a home, you may be able to get a deduction on it. But remember, you've got to have cooperation from the plan administrator. They have to be able to secure that loan with the real estate, like a trust deed. And if it's a second deed of trust, you're going to have to be able to convince the IRS that you needed that money for improvements on the home or something like that. So it's probably not going to be tax deductible.
I've heard that argument too. Well, you're paying double tax and all this stuff. But the fact of the matter is, it doesn't. If I'm using my loan to pay off a credit card, that interest that I was going to pay to the credit card wasn't tax deductible. No interest that I pay anywhere other than maybe my mortgage interest to an extent is tax deductible. So I think that argument goes out the window.
Well, it does if you're talking about non-deductible financing. You and I totally agree on the fact that if you're paying 18% on a credit card and you can borrow the money at 6% on your 401k, then go forth and borrow the money. And if you happen to lose your job, go forth and use your credit card to pay back the 401k loan, and you're in no worse situation than you would have been anyway.
Yeah, you'd have to take borrow cash. You may have a little higher interest rate, but at least you're out of that. Yeah, it's an option.
Well, yeah, but you don't get the penalty and
you don't get the
taxes and all that stuff.
It's a horrible thing to have to pay.
So how do you solve the problem? I mean, really, you solve the problem by having other assets that create some kind of liquidity for you if you need it. Now, we've talked on many hours on this program about alternative ways of saving. Roths obviously give you the ability to take your principal contributions out without penalty even before age 59 and a half. Life insurance policies, we are talking with Mr. Pastula and others all the time about how you may be able to use those as a souped up Roth IRA. We'll talk more about that as this show progresses. But I think more and more people are going to be interested in that. Now you have to have the cash flow to do this. So what we don't want you to do is spend yourself into oblivion to where you have to use a 401k loan or tap into your Roths early or whatever, because that's the worst thing you can do. So when it comes to saving for retirement, and what we're going to be talking about next is the location of those assets and the different types of tax treatment on those assets. And I think it is wise to establish an all of the above mentality.
Yeah, don't throw everything out and say you can't do it. You know, it's one thing to pay off the credit card with your 401k and you have a 401k loan. But if you're going to go out and spend some more money like you were just alluding to a second ago, and you're going to run that credit card up again, now you got your credit card debt and you got your 401k loan payback. I think a lot of people wind up doing that, which is the wrong reason to borrow from your 401k.
It is the wrong reason. And we're going to talk about asset location when we come back from the break. And asset location, the different types of taxation on the different types of investments and how they should be positioned within your portfolio, and why many times the conventional wisdom is wrong, as conventional wisdom typically is.
Isn't it though? I don't hear that anywhere else except here, but it's true. Conventional wisdom is wrong a good portion of the time. We're going to explain why.
All right, now stick around, and if you want to call us, 844-RAY-SHOW is the number, 844-729-7469, or emails, which will be coming up in a bit as well, raylucia.com. Click on the Ask Ray button. We'll be right back. Now there's some music for you.
There's an old person speaking like you and me.
Oh, yeah.
That's music.
That's
back when
some
they could
really
make
good
the
music. Yeah, Motown. Oh, yeah. You know,
Motown.
if I could sing like Smokey Robinson, I probably wouldn't be here today.
You'd have been on the Grammys or something celebrating your 50 years
That's
in
right.
whatever
Exactly.
show business or
The
whatever.
guy's unbelievable. Still to this day, he's an amazing singer.
Well, he was so good because he started young. He was very young when he
Oh, yeah.
And he's one of the original, as far as I know, one of the original Motown artists. And it sounds to me, biased as I am, just as good as he did way back when he was 15 or whatever, whenever he started.
Every once in a while, when the band is playing, with, as you well know, since you're now my new keyboard player,
Yes.
we'll do a little bebop. And I just love some of those songs, like Tears on My Pillow and stuff like that.
They can
It's
be hard
great
to
songs.
sing. It'd be very hard to sing.
Oh, yeah. You
I'm
can't
glad I
sing
don't.
Smokey. You got to, lower the key.
You got to lower it and then
lower
bring it
an
down an
octave.
octave is what you got to do. There's no way you're going to hit that.
Hey, welcome back, folks. This is the Ray Lucia Show. Talking straight talk here about location. Something you hear the real estate people talk about all the time. The financial people sometimes talk about it and sometimes get it wrong. What are we talking about here? Well, in your portfolio, you're going to have more than likely all kinds of different tax treatment assets. And getting the right accounts set up in the right, with those that have the right tax treatment, is really something that can add money, a lot of return to your overall portfolio. In other words, when we talk about many of the studies that have been done, they determined that where you place your assets can add a significant value. I'm thinking there was a Forbes study, there was a Vanguard study, and as it turns out, about 2 to 3% of your overall rate of return hinges on where you invest the types of assets that you have.
Yeah, now we should explain. You're not talking about where it's brokerage or anything like that. You really have three choices. You have the tax deferred, the deductible tax deferred, like an IRA, typical traditional IRA. You got the personal side, you got the Roth side. I mean, I think there are really the three places that you can put wherever your assets are.
Yeah, and the tax treatment differs a little bit depending on how you get to the money. So
Sure.
let's talk about that. First of all, the pre-tax money. And the pre-tax money you find in your 401ks, typically, in your IRAs and so forth. So you put the money in, you get a deduction up front, but that means the money comes out taxable. So you have to be mindful of how much you're putting into pre-tax and when you might be taking it out and what your tax situation may be at that time. For example, if you and your spouse are going to get decent amounts of Social Security and you have a pretty jumbo-sized pension, then you have to think about whether or not you want to be going in pre-tax versus paying some tax now and having the money grow tax-free, which would be one of the other options.
On the Roth side of it, yes, that's a big thing, especially, as you said, people with big pensions. I mean, I probably more people than not are not going to be in a higher tax bracket when they retire, but some are. Some are. And that's something you need to be
and it usually centers around the Social Security, the taxation and Social Security, because you can be taxed anywhere from 0 to about 45% on your Social Security payments, depending on where you fall into where the tax brackets hit you. So you do have to be mindful of that. Now, you bring up the Roth IRA, you're putting post-tax money aside. It grows on a tax-deferred basis, and when you pull the money out, depending on when and how you pull it out, it is likely to be tax-free. And everyone should have access to some tax-free money. We talked about life insurance policies a few minutes ago. Those also are similar to Roths in that you put money in post-tax. It grows on a tax-deferred basis. And it's likely that if you do it right, as long as you don't have a modified endowment contract and you withdraw your basis and or borrow your interest earnings, that too can be tax-free. Any loans would be paid off by an ultimate death benefit. So blending those into the mix can also make some sense if you want to keep your taxes lower when you do retire, and you don't have any choice with respect to required minimum distributions that are fully taxable and so forth.
Yeah, it's an important thing to remember that you have that option, because there are some people who, they just put money in their 401k and they know that they're going to be in a decent tax bracket 20 years from now, but they're not going to stop putting money in their 401k. They're going to keep investing. They're going to keep taking the tax deferral now because that's what 401ks do. Yet they're mindful, saying, okay, I will be in a higher tax bracket later on. Maybe it's time to start blending some of this, like you said. Maybe putting some Roth money or some tax-free money, let's call it, for me to tap into later on so that the tax bite isn't as bad.
Yeah, now annuities have different tax treatment than life insurance policies and Roths. Remember, life insurance policies and Roths have what is called first in, first out tax treatment. So you can withdraw money from either one of them, and as long as you don't exceed what you've put in, the first money that you've put in, as opposed to the interest income, which is the last money in, you can take that money out tax-free. A lot of people think you have to wait until you're 59 and a half to get money out of a Roth. That is not true. You can take your principal contributions out before 59 and a half. That gives you some potential flexibility when you start to take your Social Security, or whether you're going to take your Social Security. You may not be 59 and a half, but you may want to postpone taking Social Security, take some money out from your Roth. You can do all that stuff before even 59 and a half. Or maybe you want to buy some real estate and you need to get your hands on 25, 50 grand. Well, as long as you've put 25 or 50 grand in contributions into a Roth, you can get your hands on that money. Life insurance policy is the same way. Now, an annuity is LIFO, not FIFO tax treatment. So there, in order for you to get to your money and not have to pay as much tax, you either have to annuitize the contract or 1035 exchange it to another annuity contract, and then get the payments over a certain period of time. You don't have to annuitize it for the rest of your life, but over 5 years, 10 years, and then you'll pay ordinary income on the interest. But if all you do is take a withdrawal, you're going to pay 100% tax on it.
Well, you are, and there's no way really to get around paying the taxes on an annuity. There are ways to do it when you mix it with some form of long-term care. There are ways to do that, but for the most part, you're either going to be taxed on the entire thing, or if you annuitize the contract, you're going to be taxed on a portion of it. And this is true for heirs too.
But you do bring up the thing that I didn't, and that was if you buy one of these annuity contracts that pays for long-term care, that money does come out and it's tax-free. It's pretty amazing.
I will tell you this, that if you have an annuity that's been sitting around for 20 some odd years, a long time, got a lot of gain in it, and you're in a fairly high tax bracket, you really don't want to tap into it. You don't even really need the money, but you don't know what to do with it. It may make sense to 1035 exchange that into one of these types of annuity contracts that will pay for long-term care.
That's
tax-free
right.
in that case.
Plus, they usually give you an upshot. In other words, if you got $20,000 in this annuity contract, they might give you $40,000 or $50,000 for long-term care, and all that money comes out tax-free. So you game the tax system.
You do, and if
legally.
You never need the long-term care, you're no worse off than you were before.
Yeah. So there are things that you can do from an asset location standpoint that can enhance your tax and retirement position. If you want to know about that, shoot me an email, that is. Okay? I was just teasing the Democrats there for a couple seconds.
Go ahead.
Shoot me an email, raylucia.com, RAY we've had a bit of a V recovery, down and up, and so everybody's kind of mellow again. Johnny Dean, you might recall from the end of September to Christmas Eve, the market dropped 19.8%, just under bear status.
We were almost at the end of this 9+ year. It's going to be 10 years here if it makes it to March 9th, and we hit another high beyond our high from whatever it was last summer. It's going to be 10 years.
10 years of a raging bull market, I might add. We've had a bit of a recovery, the V recovery, if
It was a quick drop and then it didn't come all the way back, but it's come back somewhat.
So the question that we pose today is, what did you do? All right, did you make any moves in your portfolio? What will you do? And I think I can explain a little bit of why the volatility. Let's talk about this for just a minute. All right, when you see this kind of volatility, a lot of it is because the big cap companies are moving, and they're moving radically. And because of I think there's $8 trillion now invested in passive, inexpensive index funds without a manager. So there's nobody that is an asset manager or a portfolio manager who's got to be thinking about redemptions, all right? Because managers think about that. The computer doesn't.
Meaning that somebody's got to get paid if they're going to be selling off.
Right. When people start to bail out, and remember, human beings, whether you're in an index fund or an actively managed fund, still respond like human beings. And while we can preach all day long to you all, and you're probably not the problem out there, but that person that you know from the gym or the club or whatever may be the person that pushes the panic button next time, and the mutual fund manager has to raise cash. Well, so does the index fund, by the way. But the mutual fund manager typically is holding on to some cash in the unlikely event they might need to raise some. So people say, well, why don't active managers beat the index? That's one of the main reasons why. And you'll have to make your decision as to whether or not you think that's a good idea. But if you're an active manager, you're typically not fully invested in the riskiest stocks in the index.
Yeah, it's because you're actively managing and you're looking at it, making decisions based on 1,000 different characteristics of the market.
I would just ask you, with the amount of money that you have on hand, how much of it is invested in stocks versus in cash for emergencies and so forth? Obviously, most of us have a stash of emergency money, right?
Yeah, I've got some. Most of mine is in the form of a line of credit on the home, if I ever need it.
Me too. But the point is, an active manager has got to have a certain amount of cash, and by its very nature, they're going to underperform. So when you hear all this hullabaloo about active managers underperform on average against the indexes, that's one of the reasons why, because all the ships are rising in the sea. And when you've got 10 years, and you bring up the 10 years, when the market's gone up for 10 years in a row, most people say, I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to look at financial statements or analyze whether or not this is a good company or a bad company.
I'm a genius no matter what I do.
I'm a genius. Now, Ned Davis Research has, and also, remember Charles Brandis here in town?
Yes.
He's taken some issue with this whole passive versus active. But let me kind of quote from what I found here online, and this is interesting stuff. They say this: one reason for the disparity of underperformance is that active managers don't bet the ranch with your money. That's according to Dalbar's CEO, Lou Harvey. They hold some aside for the time when things go wrong. This protection takes away from gains, since a portion of your money is held in low-yielding cash or bonds. So my question is that bad? Does that make them bad or terrible money managers?
No, actually it makes them a better money manager, in my opinion. The same way that a retired person needs to have cash on hand for when the markets aren't doing what they're supposed to do, so they can have a steady income and not have to worry about it.
The thing that happens is when the markets start to go down, you want to look to those fund managers that lose less, because making more is a next to impossible job when you're managing money against a fully invested index that's mostly growth stocks.
You've seen people that go around looking for brokers or even financial advisors and saying, well, what's your track record? What were your gains over the last 5 years, 10 years? This is how I'm going to make my decision. You're right. It's probably, if you're going to do that, it's probably a better idea to say, show me how you've done during the down times. Did you lose the least? Because that's what's important to me.
One particularly cautionary voice is Ned Davis Research, whom I have a great deal of respect for. So they're saying, hey, hold the phone a little bit on all of this passive investing. And I tend to agree with them. Here's what they go on to say. The signs of excesses are everywhere. The distortion is different this time around because of its breadth. In the dot-com era, all the action was in growth stocks. In 2000, well over 90% of their assets and mutual funds were invested in growth funds. What makes this run-up different is all boats are rising. Passive investing results in the indiscriminate buying of all stocks, both growth and value. One hint of the overvaluation, the average stock in the S&P rose to 2.5 times in 2017, compared with 1.6 times sales in 2000. So we all thought that 2000 was a really dangerous time, and it was for technology stocks for sure. And remember, that launched the decade, or the so-called lost decade, where nobody made money in an index fund for 10 years, from 2000 through the end of 2009. The index lost something like 1.9%. The market is trading at 2.5 times sales. It was trading at 1.6 times sales then. Now, I'm not here to say get out. That would be misquoting what my concern is. My concern is you. What are you going to do if the market starts to implode? And more critically, what is your strategy going forward? You know what my strategy is.
May I ask you, what should someone do? My answer would be nothing. That's my answer. Now, but you tell me.
Well,
if somebody came to you and said the market is going down, what should I do? Is this a time to sell?
Yeah, it's never a good time to sell when you think it's a good time to sell.
Because then it's too late.
Right. And I've got an email somewhere around here on value averaging, which I do subscribe to and have recommended. And I'll explain what that is if you want in a minute. But basically, it's skimming the cream off the top. And that was the question. How do you skim the cream off the top? I don't know if we'll get to it in this email. But you asked me what I would do. It's what I do and what I recommend others do. And that is have a real live financial plan. Have it written down. Have an investment policy statement that will basically protect you from you. Because unfortunately, our brains are hardwired for us to do the wrong things at the wrong times for the wrong reasons. There's nothing wrong with volatility. We've had it since forever. It's just we haven't had much of it in the last decade or so. But we're going to have more of it, in my opinion, because of this craze toward indexing. Remember what indexing is. A market capitalization weighted index. When you make an investment, it applies more money to the bigger, most expensive companies and less money to those companies that are the least expensive. Therefore, the big companies get bigger and they get bigger and they get bigger. And of course, when they fall harder. An active manager is going to apply a certain type of screen to those companies. And they're probably not going to take as big a position in the biggest of companies, and therefore probably buy smaller, less known companies, and over certain time periods they may not perform as well. But that's just what happens. However, if you looked at the stats over long time periods, small companies have done better than large companies. So what would I do? Start with the financial plan. Number 2, diversify in a multi-asset, multi-style, perhaps even a multi-manager diversified way. And then have enough dry powder so that when the markets do go south, you can fight off the sensation, what you need to do, what your brain is telling you to do, which is sell, 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 and instead value average and buy, buy, buy.
We have to say bye-bye for about 3 or 4 minutes
I know.
here. So
I'll
that's
explain
a
the
good
value
point.
averaging thing on the other side. We'll do some emails.
We've got
Fair
some
enough?
emails as well.
All right, stick around, folks. This is The Ray Lucia Show. parameters. That's all I'm saying.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Now, this is not for whatever reason, not my favorite song.
That's not my favorite song.
It's a little odd. It's not
I
very
like
melodious.
Watchtower much better than that.
Yeah, it's okay, but I get it. I would rather hear that than
I wonder if
something
Smokey
else.
Robinson could do that.
What, play that?
No, sing
Oh,
it.
sing it? It's not quite his style, is it?
I don't think so.
Probably not, but
No.
I wouldn't put it past him. I wouldn't.
But
put it
I'll bet. What was her name? Cardi B or whatever.
I don't know. Fine. Okay. Sure. Where does anybody use their real names anymore?
I don't know.
Like Bob Dylan. Oh wait, he didn't either. Never mind.
You know, if you say her name backwards, she's Bacardi.
Maybe that's what she wanted.
Let's hit it, boys. Let's do some emails.
You
while
got
we can.
mail.
Hey, here it is. We'll cover the. If we have time, we'll cover the value averaging thing.
Yeah, I'll have
we
to do
can.
that tomorrow. It's just basically a way to buy low and sell high. Kind of force yourself into doing this stuff.
Right. Buy lower and sell higher. It doesn't mean that you're doing it on the actual high, but yeah, it's a wonderful strategy and it's something that people should be paying attention to, like the big money managers do.
Yes, indeed.
Tomas, I did say we would get to his email. Hi, Mr. Lucia. You can call him Ray. Tomas, I think. Should I pay off debt first or do both? Pay off debt and contribute to my retirement. I'm 51 years old. Thank you.
Yeah, you know, this is a question that comes up quite a bit, Tomas. And I don't know what the interest rates are that you're paying on the debt. I'll tell you, there's a little thing that goes off in my brain that when the interest rates get too high, I say just focus on the debt. But usually, I think it's a good idea to do both. Because once again, we're playing with the brain here. You've got to sometimes convince yourself that that putting money away for your retirement is automatic, and you got to do it every single day, every single month. But if you're paying 26% for some credit card, now I've got to say, pay off the debt first. It's a tough call, John.
Well, as you said, we don't have the information we really need, which is what is the interest rate. I think if you're paying, 3-4-0%, it's probably less important to do that and probably more important to focus on your retirement.
Also, remember, if you're putting money into a pre-tax retirement account, you're getting a tax benefit. So if you put $1 away and you get 25 cents in a credit, you could always take that credit and apply it toward paying down debt. When you do pay down debt, you're paying after-tax dollars. So sometimes, I wouldn't pay minimum to fund my retirement, but I might split the difference.
Yeah. All right. Tomas, I hope that helps you out. If you want to email us maybe and give us some information on your interest rate, we can probably give you a little bit better, more accurate answer. Let's see. Oh, goodness. Scott's is too long. I'm going to have to shorten this. Scott, I apologize. Let's do one that I know is shorter than I have here. We talked about this. Pam says, I'm following your recommendation to look into value averaging.
Very
Which
good.
I said we'll talk more about that. If my target is 8%, is that 8% of the total or just bucket number 3? And what is the best way to skim off the top? So 2 questions.
Yeah, okay. So what was the name again?
Pam. This is Pam.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for the email, and thank you for being diligent with respect to how you're managing your portfolio. When I talk about value averaging, first of all, I'm just talking about your equity portfolio. I'm not talking about the safe stuff and all that. I'm talking about stocks. And for those that don't know, she says her target is 8%. So what does that mean? That means you build in an 8% expectation. I expect, net of fees, etc., for my bucket number 3 or my growth portfolio to grow at 8%
This year.
So yeah, for this year, whatever time period. And so it does more than 8%. It does 18% because you have a good year. And remember, the markets they may average 8 or 10%, but the way they get there is 18 one year, 31 one year, 6 the next, minus 10 the next. And so the value averaging thing is a way for you to skim some of those really good years off the top and just sanitize that money, hold it in abeyance so that when you do have a really bad year, you can buy back in. Now, here's the way that I would do it. I would try to make sure that my portfolio grew by 8% every single year. So in a year where I only earned 6, I'd take money out of my pocket and add the 2% to get to 8%. In a year where I did 16, I've got 8% more than I bargained for. I'd scrape that 8% off the top. You ask how? It's usually better to do that in a 401k or an IRA where you don't have to deal with taxes and gains and all that stuff. But then that money sits on the sidelines, and in a year where you do -2, you can pull from that money and get your portfolio back up to an 8% rate of return. Now, caution. This is not going to make you richer. It is not going to make you richer, except that it will probably keep you in the game, which might make you richer. But if by comparing it to just buying and holding, most of the time, value averaging will underperform. Although I did get an email from a guy that's been doing it for a while. He used I think a 15 or a 16% threshold, and he was killing it. But obviously, it's been the last several years. But what it does, John, is it provides a discipline. And if people follow a discipline, even if it's not the best thing to do, it usually works out pretty darn well.
But you don't do this to get the best rate of return. The whole point is not to get the best rate of return. The whole point is to get an average rate of return over the course of many years, just like the market does. So to me, I'm not looking, if I'm looking for the best rate of return, I'm throwing it all in. I don't care what. This forces you to, how about this? Buy low or lower, sell higher. When everybody else, when the markets are high, everybody's saying, oh, I got to jump in. A lot of people should be saying, it's probably time to jump out, take some of those profits.
Yeah, and that never works. Jumping in and jumping out never works. This is why having a disciplined approach to investing can work very, very well for you. And what I have found is whether you're investing money regularly by dollar cost averaging or you're value averaging, clearly value averaging is one of those things that's going to be like dollar cost averaging, but I think a little bit better. For those that are making ongoing contributions and you've got the ability to go into a safe money account and overfund, you're always going to be buying in when the market, you're going to be buying more when the markets are down, getting you up to that 8% or 10% or 12% threshold. Everybody that I've ever met that does it this way loves value averaging, and I do too. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Johnny, thank you. Now go out and make it a blessed day. Bye-bye.
You're listening to The Ray Lucia Show, bringing you the best in money information, answering questions about your biggest financial challenges, talking about your money, your business, and your life. Ray Lucia is not a registered representative of or affiliated with any securities brokerage or investment advisory firm. The views and opinions expressed by Ray and his guests are not necessarily those of this station or its sponsors and should not be construed as legal, tax, or investment advice. You should always consult with the appropriate advisors before making any financial decisions. Ray is available to take your questions online at raylucia.com.
Forget about it.